HSAs are criminally underutilized by most of the people who have them. For every 100 Americans, only 22 are covered by an HSA, and of those 22, fewer than 4.5 actually invest any portion of it. Contributing to a health savings account might not sound particularly sexy, but hear me out, they're awesome. In this video, I'm going to talk about the two main ways you can use your HSA, eligibility to contribute, the different tax advantages that surround them, what I do with my own HSA, and why I think they're so important. HSAs can function like checking accounts for medical expenses or as investment accounts. The money that you put into them is yours for life. It never expires, and you don't lose it if you lose your job or your insurance. In the first scenario, the money that you contribute sits there as cash until you use your HSA debit card to pay for a doctor visit or sunscreen or a teeth cleaning, what have you. There are loads of things that are covered as qualified medical expenses, and more are getting added regularly. In the second scenario, the money that you contribute gets invested into stocks and funds that grow with the stock market. If you can pay for medical expenses in the present, you can reimburse yourself for those anytime in the future from your HSA. There's no time limit. So my plan is to try and shoulder the burden of medical costs as they come up, save my receipts and bills, and then at some point in the future, once my HSA has grown much larger, I'll reimburse myself. The average American will have about $300,000 of medical expenses over their lifetimes. If, starting at the age 22, you contribute the maximum to your HSA and invest it, by the time you're in your early to mid 40s, you'll have enough money to pay for a lifetime of medical expenses. Essentially, you're going to need this money for medical expenses anyways, so you might as well save as much money as possible on taxes. If you have great health and you never really need this money, then after the age 65, you can just pay taxes on it then. Since the point of this account is to pay for medical expenses, if you take money out for non-medical purposes, you're going to be subject to income tax as well as a 20% penalty. This might sound like a disadvantage, but I actually think that's a really good thing, and I'll explain why later. The government will always want to tax you when they can. Fees and taxes eat away at our return over time, and these are increasingly more expensive the younger we are. That's because we need to think about how much they cost in the moment, but also the cost of opportunity of what that money could be doing if it was working for us. So, for example, let's say I buy a $20,000 car. It costs me $20,000 today, but because I put that money into the car and not into the stock market, at the age of 60, that $20,000 car actually cost me $140,000. There are very few ways I can get out of paying taxes, and I'm going to have medical expenses, so I really like the quadruple tax savings that I get with the HSA. Tax advantage number 1. Contributions are not subject to federal income tax or state income tax unless you live in California or New Jersey. If I contribute the maximum of $4,150 to my HSA this year, I will reduce my taxable income by $4,150. Because of the marginal tax bracket that I happen to be in, that means I'll get an additional $900 back on my refunds. I think about it like this. If I invest $4,150 for my future self, the government will give me an additional $900 back from the taxes they collected from me. So that's pretty sweet. Tax advantage number 2. The money in your HSA grows tax-free. When stocks or funds pay dividends, or when you sell a stock or a fund, you don't pay capital gains. Tax advantage number 3. Withdrawals for qualified medical expenses come out tax-free. This can be paying for a medical expense in the moment or a reimbursement for a prior medical expense. There's no time limit on reimbursing yourself. The only stipulation here is you can't reimburse yourself for a medical event that happened prior to when you opened your HSA. You'll want to save copies of your receipts and invoices just in case the IRS audits you in the year that you withdraw the money.
Oh, get bent! Tax man!
Tax advantage number 4. If you contribute through a paycheck deduction and not through a linked bank account, you'll also avoid payroll taxes like Medicare and Social Security. So why do I think paying taxes and penalties on non-medical withdrawals is a good thing? Well, as it turns out, we Americans are really bad at saving money. The national personal savings rate is just over 4%. this puts us 27th in the world. We live in a consumption-driven society where we're constantly spending money in the present and failing to set money aside for the future. Penalties and taxes discourage people from taking this money out. While you still technically can take this money out, most people are probably going to leave the money in the account when they realize that withdrawing it is going to be realizing a 42-ish% loss. It's almost a forced savings behavior, but in light of how bad we are at saving money, I think that's ultimately a good thing. I have an HSA with Health Equity since that's who my employer's chosen. I also have an HSA with Fidelity since that's who I prefer. I'll explain why in a moment. I contribute through my paycheck to my Health Equity HSA for maximum tax savings. Then when the money hits that account, I'll log on to Health Equity, fill out a quick form, and they'll send that money to my Fidelity HSA. Once the money hits my Fidelity HSA, I'll promptly invest that into VTI. I don't like Health Equity because they force me to hold $1,000 in cash before I can invest. I don't plan on spending this money, so I'd prefer to just invest 100% of my account. They also charge an admin fee, and they charge a small percentage of my investments each month. The investment options are also very limited, and this is neither here nor there, but I hate their interface. I like Fidelity because I can invest 100% of my account, they don't charge an admin fee, they don't charge a percentage of my investments, and I can invest in anything in the stock market. I choose to invest in VTI because it's a low-cost total market index fund. Funds diversify risk because they own many individual companies, but that doesn't mean every fund is good. There are about 4,300 publicly traded companies in the US, but about 7,400 publicly traded mutual funds. There's more packaging than product. I would prefer to get the most possible product with the least possible packaging. That's VTI. VTI is a low-cost total market index fund. It owns every company, so you won't miss out on any company's growth. In order to be eligible to contribute to an HSA, you have to be covered by a high-deductible health plan. For 2024, the IRS defines this as a health plan with a deductible of $1,600 or more. There are a few other stipulations, so you'll want to double-check on the IRS website that you're fully eligible. Look at how much money you're paying each month for your insurance. Look at how much money you're paying before insurance starts to kick in, and look at how much money you have to pay before insurance covers everything. Depending on your unique circumstances, being covered by a high deductible health plan just so you can contribute to an HSA might not be worthwhile. For me, it makes sense because I have relatively good health, so I'm happy to pay a low premium each month. I'm not going to hit my deductible. But everyone's situation is different, so think critically before signing up for the high deductible health plan just so you can contribute to an HSA. Consider all your options. In this video here, I talk about the principle of paying yourself first. It's a massively successful concept because it makes saving for the future a priority before spending any money. HSA contributions that come out of your paycheck are so successful because they're consistent, they're automatic, and they occur before you can even spend your money. The HSA is the first account I prioritize contributing to, even before the Roth IRA or a 401k. It's kind of like having one tool. Sure, it might be the tool that you happen to need in this particular circumstance, but having access to more tools is going to be helpful. Having access to more kinds of investment accounts is going to be helpful. HSAs can slip through the cracks because you have to be covered by particular health insurance plans to be eligible for them. A lot of people enter the workforce while they're still covered by parents' health insurance, and then when they come off of their parents' health insurance at 26, contributing money into a health savings account doesn't sound particularly sexy. Do you have an HSA? Do you use it to pay for present medical expenses, or do you invest it? Do you have a different take on these kinds of accounts? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching.